If you want to find God, you have to be ready for the truth to destroy everything that you think you know. Your identity in society has been influenced. This has to be seen through. It is the culture in which your body is born. Your mind claims your body as who you are, but it can only reference past and future. This is one reason, among other more obvious reasons, why a baby is not thinking it is the body. It's too early, too fresh. Something has to make room for influence for the baby's mind to believe it is the body. Constant discord is experienced by the majority of humans on the planet between their bodies and the stability of their minds related to a harmonious existence. But there's a feeling of, what am I missing? It is not obvious because it is so immediately obvious it has been covered up through speedy rushing around in order to feel a sense of accomplishment. Hardly anyone has an expression on their face that is of a genuine happiness. The Beatles had a line in a song that said, "All the lonely people, where do they all come from?" People have lost their sense of community in believing that the gloom of stress is supposed to be the way it is because that's just the way it has always been. When you look at many faces of the people with Down syndrome, they appear far more relaxed and happy than any common individual. When we look at the so-called beautiful faces of the rich who are anchored to their business affairs, their smiles seem forced when compared to the happy Down syndrome faces. We're taught to believe the idea of survival of the fittest, but only as a theory. What is the opposing theory? Ask anyone who has heard of the survival of the fittest theory what its opposing theory is, and what answer will you get? If indeed the cream of the crop were the survivors to carry forward the genetics of the species, why is it that humans cannot find contentment? Shouldn't the cream of the crop be aware of the resources used for survival and teach their offspring how to interact harmoniously with it? Perhaps not all animals are capable of this simple human concept, but if resources are used on an as-needed basis, why is there a shortage? Why are people on the planet unable to use primitive water purification techniques and have something to drink? Almost archaic distillation processes by today's standards would be a step up from that. Fear and greed have somehow taken over. This is the norm. Stepping outside of the norm to search for solutions isn't popular in the efforts of individuals. Is it exclusive, or have their identities been campaigned in such a way that true harmony seems like a distant option? Perhaps something for someone else with more time to do. The daily struggle deepens with children, and resources seem scarce. But it isn't because of a lack of available information that keeps people from growing food just outside of their dwellings. humans have learned to judge things aesthetically instead of first establishing a foundation from which they can operate harmoniously with their resources. Resources seem so distant, and time seems so inadequate. So much activity and so little foundation to rest upon. Yet the concept of efficiency is not too lofty for most middle-class workers. What is it that keeps them so pressed to the work schedule at work and away from home under what are considered normal circumstances? And home seems to be a place just to sleep and take care of the basic necessities of preparing to spend time at something that isn't directly impacting their foundation of operation. Money is not a natural resource, and its value does not fluctuate in harmony with nature. It offers a mode of thinking where instead of seeing the value of an apple and what the apple can do for the health, the apple is grayly judged in numerical values, strictly within the confines of buying power. People are trained through money to think in terms of power. It is a mode of thinking. It isn't good or bad, but is it a system designed by our best genetics who are in harmony with nature? Did hunter-gatherers suffer from this imposed mode of thinking? Apples are food, not monetary values. No, society doesn't like people who think outside of the established monetary boundaries, because that would appear to be violent. Let's look at that closely. One who is interested in natural thinking is considered violent if it is outside of established power. Power is not more important than food. In fact, power has no real position in nature. It is a collective agreement. But children who know nothing about the agreement are born into the vicinity of the establishment, focused more on power than on nature. If you want evidence for this, just look at what is being destroyed on this planet under companies who are using monetary power. This isn't a message to overthrow anybody. It is an invitation to look at what is happening and ask the question as to whether or not it is fit and harmonious with our natural environment as a human species. It is not a race. Nobody is winning any race. That is a game. How could anyone make such a bold statement? Because there is no prize and no finish line. Not only that, where are past and future while everybody is moving in the same present moment? Why then is everybody in a hurry? That is the influence, visibility, and observable result of power. Policies are the agent of power, but they aren't real either. It's all just ideas. Ideas are driving the destruction of the planet into a state of emergency. And when people have had enough of the stress of it, some commit suicide. Others try to fight the system with the system, using policy against policy, and yet others go mad. Many aren't interested because they aren't aware they have the option. Sure, the face of talk about these issues are present, but it seems impossible to get a beginning grip on the activity of correcting the matter. Why? Power, which itself is just a concept with a winning side and a losing side, is disharmonious. At least in the survival of the fittest theory, it is about survival and not about exploitation. Power is the reason that poor people are stimulated to keep the population numbers up for sufficient protection of the establishment. This seems fine if we only look at it through the lens of the idea that it is wholesome to be safe. Is nature safer than a lopsided power structure that is destroying the planet? Yes. And that is why humans are losing their power without any necessary interference at all. If we look at what has happened with the bees have been manipulated unnaturally, and it rebounded. Perhaps the bees will be so aggressive that they can keep up with the rate at which pesticides are sprayed on the crops, that many of them will visit and die. Perhaps their aggression will keep them alive long enough to surpass the starvation of the human species when fear and starving population have grown so strong that the money system collapses from the bottom and nobody alive has any skills to cultivate food crops. The natives have been assigned to casinos to focus on money, and the aggression at the top survives through money, all via the idea that it has more power than an apple. Test the idea the next time you go to purchase groceries somewhere. Are your eyes focused on prices or on the nourishment that your body receives from the food? Those with lots of power aren't focused on prices at all. So there is part of the counter argument for such a statement. What about those who don't have power? Are they focused on the nourishment that the food will provide? Yes, but they also feel an unnatural restriction because they are forced to pause and contemplate their power instead of contemplating their ability to eat. Money is creating people who are too elite to worry about the exponential effect that the spread between impoverished and ultra-powerful have become. But the spread is based on an idea, not on natural ability. The refinement is so extreme in some cases throughout the world that entire empty cargo jetliners are filled with the most expensive items from one country and shipped to private palaces abroad. Money has given humans the ability to consume themselves in a very direct, yet difficult to detect way. It is simply so big that nobody can see it. Yet everybody is experiencing it. What is the solution then if it isn't available through power and money due to the greed and fear that gets in the way of wholesome harmony? Nature will provide the answer. Nature allowed something disharmonious. It must have a balance because if balance were not available, we would not be here. Start focusing on nature and it won't be so harsh when the pendulum changes directions. Be in a hurry that way while using what is here, and intelligence will be greater collectively. Are you tired of disharmony? Are you tired of being afraid? Are you tired of being tired in a way where you cannot focus on anything around the home except some form of entertainment to pull the focus away from the dilemmas of this only shared reality that we have on this human level? Get in touch with nature. Regain a sense of wonder. Find out answers to the questions of existence. Explore outside of what you've been told. Just because someone else knows something doesn't mean that your sense of wonder is obligated to be destroyed. Nothing seems fresh anymore, and that helps kindle the destructive nature in the human. Just look at how much aggression is sold in one day as a desirable venture. Sarcasm is more of a staple than an apple. Where has love gone? It is still here, but it is clouded by knowledge and the fear of not being fit enough to survive. What joy can be found in life by struggling to fight against an imaginary clock that doesn't serve the home front anything more than a routine struggle? Get in touch with nature. Go outside and put your bare feet on the ground and feel something. Smell the air you are breathing. Listen for something alive that isn't electronic. Look away from a screen at least once a day to remind yourself you are not trapped in its content. Plug your ears when the sirens scream down the street a mile away and have nothing to do with where your feet are. You can send love to all humanity without sirens. Get in touch with nature. Go for a walk without a destination in mind. Let your wandering be enjoyed because it is natural. The grid of culture is so afraid for people to think differently that when they see someone who does not respond in the way that a normal conformist to destruction would respond, they are dangerous. There are enlightened beings in mental hospitals all over the world who have been labeled something because of the degree of their view away from established scientific expectations. Pharmaceuticals are not interested in balance either. One balanced symptom creates multiple subtle imbalances that over continued use produce more symptoms that need treatment. These are not side effects because they aren't happening on the side. They are taking place in the same location as the treatment. They are effects of treatment. Mental hospitals are poisoning those who are not average. And even though mental illness is real, the asylums have become more like prisons where people are used as lab rats. Most of the patients will never be able to get out of the security system in the building to talk about it. So why not? And if they did, who would believe them anyway? They are carrying a scientific label that allows others to ignore them because they are officially different. They have stepped away from the grid of thinking in search for what is beyond the provided education through exploration. Some of them more dangerously than others, but some have been peaceful. It is popular in the East to come across people who have gone mad exploring inner space. But when it happens in the West, it is a case of labeling insanity through science. Exploration is taboo in this regard because it impedes on the routine of society. It impedes on the culture, especially the establishment of science and politically driven agendas that have been decorated with the title of religion. I'm not certain on anything at all, but it isn't because I gave up looking. It is because the life that is within me wants to live and explore the mystery of life. That is nature. Don't fight anything. Just become aware of it. Be aware in every moment possible, not out of fear, but in wonderment. Knowledge is dead. Explore knowledge. Throwing it around is like a cat playing with a dead mouse. Digest it and move on, and explore nature. Nature is the greatest gift for human to explore. It is not the mind. The mind is projections and memory of what is not. It is a mirror for the dead. Imagination can be practical, but it is also useless if there is no contact with nature. Without nature, it becomes a label of mental illness. Or if the human is lucky, it gets turned into an art. Or if the human is lucky, it gets turned into art, and because it falls under a known label, their life is acceptable. Who is judging? Those who have failed to explore nature. Death is certain. Don't be afraid to explore this human experience. Find your resolve by exploring nature, your own nature, and the nature of the external world. Technology is fantastic in creating useful and practical applications for intelligence, but when it is under the regime of power, science is an agency for fear and greed. It isn't about governments and agencies, however. It's about the people who are occupying the seats. People, human beings who are part of nature. What to do? Explore nature. Contemplate the age-old questions of humanity and existence. Look existentially for answers instead of imagining solutions out of fear and greed. Nature is not separate from you. How many people in the jungle tribes suffer from imbalances caused by stress? They have plenty of exercise in the human's natural climate. The human body is a tropical animal. They have a direct sense of social community. Not 7 media streams, all of which have been monitored if communication can happen. at its full potential between a few people. In the tribe, everybody is aware of what is happening. There aren't 35 layers of marketing systems between their sustainment efforts and sharing a meal together. Where do you begin? First, listen to your body, not your mind. Second, keep in touch with natural things throughout the daily activity. Holding cell phones is an addiction. If you don't think so, just look away from yours for a moment and see how many others are also looking away from theirs. Notice that for a day. Don't judge anything, just notice it and ask if it is harmonious with nature. Greater forces around the earth have created the earth. It does not matter what you call it. There is something natural to be explored. The mind will never feel real because it can only project. Look beyond the mental story and watch the activity in your experience. What is natural about it? Start there. It's okay if you are the only one of many. It means that you are not homogenized. You are not a cut cookie. You are alive and have the ability to be in wonder, to adventure, to find your inner resolve with existence here and now. Try to let go of what is not near your feet, and your heart will become lighter. Then you may have the courage to clear out all of the guilt you have been sold by the disharmony. You are here to explore existence. You are not here to tread familiar roads until death. Familiarity cannot be enough until your inner resolve has been made whole and complete. You are designed to explore. Find the edge of knowledge and step away from it into nature every chance you have. You are walking out of death and into existence. Your exploration will show you the way. Trust where your feet are and take a step toward nature. If you're bold enough, you may find your answers. You may meet the miracle. You may meet something divine. Your exploration of nature will show you who you are aside from what you've been told about who you are. Don't rebel. Be harmonious and peacefully explore. Some will never care except near the moment of death, and that is too late to enjoy. Sickness will be the focus, and happiness will be clouded by so many thoughts about why you did not find happiness before death came knocking. Don't carry any formulas that tell you what you are supposed to do and who you are supposed to be. You have to look for yourself if it is ever going to be your actual reality. What other truth is there in your experience? Nature is the air you breathe. Your enjoyment and fulfillment that you have at the moment of death is where this human experience is going. Nobody is going to care about your story 600 years from now. There may be one or two, but remember it, because building your story is of no consequence. Your actual journey itself is a movement inside of nature. Don't waste it. Be uncomfortable every once in a while. It lets you know where the edge of your exploration is. It is your bridge to wonderment. It is a direction towards being in love. Namaskaram. Blessings. Om.